And they are here, right? Yes, they are. Okay, all right. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Have attention, please. All quiet, please. Thank you. Go ahead and take out your notes. We're going to continue with the Constitution. We're going to be going into, most of the time is going to be on civil rights. Michael, I think we're going to be wrapping up civil rights by early the next time we get together, which for you is? Exactly. And then we'll be able to do a review. And I already know how long the test is going to be, 65. How? Like the way we do before. How do we review? I ask you questions. Exactly. I don't like that. Yeah. Yeah. And if you need help, you can ask somebody for help, which is perfectly fine. Because the goal is to go through a variety of different questions so you get a sense of what's going to be on the test. Of course, the best thing you need to do is, and start doing it now, go through the material. Because we've actually done a fair amount of time on the Constitution. And our next unit is going to be quite big, too. It's good, right? Because I think after the spring break, 10 weeks, I think? 10 and like a half-ish week. I think the second to last week of school we have, oh, wow, the Monday off. Woo, Memorial Day. And you're like, we already get Mondays off. And then the week after that, we end on the Thursday, the 10th of June. Okay? So you guys ready to dive back into it? Questions? Okay. All right, let's do this. Where are we? Oh, we've done a number of things here. Yeah, we're in the Constitution of the United States. We're going to be getting into the civil rights. Actually, I'll put this one up there so you can get a really good look at it. Wow, who can do that? Huh? Who could create Greater Idaho? Congress could, right? I don't think they're about to, but there is some people trying to get that organized and so forth. Okay? Who did carve up a previous state? Congress. Who allows territories to become states? Congress. Who sometimes I point this out. Let's see if you can figure this one out. This is a controversial piece of history, and if you live in Idaho long enough, if you've been here, how many of you guys have been here like your entire lives? Right? How many of you guys were born in Idaho? How many of you guys have moved to Idaho? There we go. I was born and I moved to Idaho, so I guess I've got both of those. Well, if you know enough about Idaho history, you'll be able to identify, perhaps, it's not Idaho, but guess which state was a territory, and Congress was like, I don't think we're quite ready to make you a state. We've got concerns back here in Washington, D.C. Typically in our country's history, as long as a territory had enough people, and after a while you get enough European descent people in a territory, and then they get all organized, right? Because Idaho was created as a territory, I want to say, during the time of Abraham Lincoln. And we gained our statehood. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I should know this. When did Idaho become a state? It is 18-something. I want to say because I was here for the centenary. I want to say it was like right in here, like 1890-something. So, 1890? That's very good. Thank you, look. Yeah, and guess what high school was created in the West Ada, it used to be called the Meridian School District, the West Ada School District in that time period? No, that's in the Boise School District. No, that wasn't created. That was like one of the more recent ones. I'll give you a clue. It was named after the 100th anniversary of Idaho Centennial. Yeah, centennial, anyway. Okay. So when you celebrate the centennial, I was here in 1976 for the bicentennial celebrations of our country's independence. Ooh, yeah, I'm old. Yeah, so they have fireworks and everything going off and so forth. That's 200 years. Will you be here alive for the tricentennial celebration of our country? What year is that going to be? 2076, yep. Yeah, 1776 is when we started, 2076, yeah. So anyway, yeah, there was one state. As soon as you finish taking a look at that, then hand that off to me. Okay, thank you. This particular state had plenty of people. I'll give you a clue. It was not too far. These people lived not too far from the territory that Idaho is. Okay? And the reason why Congress was like, we don't like those people. Prejudice. In fact, I'll give you a clue. Raise your hand if you can identify the territory that became a state after Idaho, although it had enough people before Idaho. Mm-hmm. And it was because of prejudice. Oh, religious prejudice. Nope, not Oregon.
Montana.
Nope, not Montana.
Wyoming.
Nope, not Wyoming. He's running out of states. Did you finish? Okay. Which one? What's your final answer? Did you get a chance to look at that? Oh, yeah, you don't need to. Why Utah? Why is Utah the correct answer?
Oh, I know.
Why?
Looking at the
Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, a.k.a. LDS, a.k.a. Mormons. Yeah, folks of that faith like to be referred to as Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. And it was a religious bias. And one of the things, curiously, we'll be looking at later on, because it came up in one of the classes, somebody's like, well, I wonder if any state's going to allow for polygamy. And somebody goes, Utah, and somebody else is going, no, I don't think so. Been there, done that. That was one of the reasons that Congress was very much back over 100 years ago saying, no, we don't want Utah to come into the country because polygamy was legal among the folks that were living there. Then that faith had a change, and polygamy became not okay within that faith. Okay? So it's not okay within that. And then when they reapplied to get statehood, Congress was like, okay, you can become a state. Come on in, Utah. Right? In the meantime, Idaho looked at the problems that Utah was having. So you know what we put in our Constitution so that the folks back in Washington, D.C. can go, oh, well, we'll let Idaho in there. Yeah, no polygamy. Oh, and they also said you couldn't vote or even hold office if you had a faith that allowed for things like polygamy and so forth, which was entirely unconstitutional, as we'll see, because there's a thing in the Constitution, the First Amendment, that allows for freedom of religion. But Idaho was sort of like, oh, no, we're not like Utah, so forget about that. And so we got into the Union. And then eventually there was the change within the faith of polygamy, and Utah was able to get in. Interesting. Are you saying that people's prejudices sometimes affect how this country relates to certain folks in this country? Trey? Don't. All right, yeah, I mean, it does. It's part of our country's history and fabric and so forth, so we pull it back and go, but I have faith, right? You guys are going to be the perfect generation. Don't you think these guys are going to be the perfect generation? And they're going to get it right. Unlike all of us old people that continually remake the old mistakes or make new mistakes. Are you guys going to get it done right?
No, not
Wow, great. Thanks, Seva. That's really encouraging. I'm not even going to try. It's going to go tick, 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 boom. Yeah, anyway, so can you guys do it better? If you learn about the mistakes of the past that older people did, can you do it better? I hope so. Yeah, anyway. So, there we go. All right, continuing looking at the United States. Oh, Puerto Rico. Yeah. It's coming. I think we're going to have to figure it out. I vote for this one. Anyway. Yeah, there is. Do you think they would have posted this as a 51-star thing? Go ahead, take an image of it. Take an image on your own time. You can count them. 1, 2, 3, 51. Okay, go ahead. I challenge you. Yeah, challenge accepted. You know, I think that's fine. I mean, when you're certainly doing historical stuff, when people do celebrations of like the bicentennial, you know, they'll take out like the original Betsy Ross flag design. You know, it is actually kind of interesting because I don't think we ever developed a 49-star flag because Hawaii and Alaska came in like back to back. In fact, I always forget which one was first. I want to say Hawaii was first and then Alaska, I think. If I'm wrong, then it's the other way around. But we never really, because we had the 48-star. Take a look up here. This is a artistic rendition of 3 American flags, right? Anyway, it was the 6x8 rendition of the flags, which if you know from math, because you guys were just in math, what is 6 times 8? Don't you wish math was so easy throughout your entire high school career? Wow.
Alaska was first.
Was it? Okay. So Hawaii was the last one. So yeah, I mean, they had that design up until the late 1950s when Alaska and Hawaii came in. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if Puerto Rico, this was, the thing we're waiting on is Puerto Rico interested in becoming a state? And it looks like the consensus of public opinion there is, let's do this. Let's do this. Enough of being a territory. And if we want it to be another poor Caribbean independent state, country, go for it. Because there are poor independent Caribbean states, you know, and they rely on the tourist economy. People are like, oh, let's go to the beaches, and it's lovely, and it's wonderful, and tourists can come. Not too many tourists during COVID. And what is a danger? What is a meteorological danger to an economy that relies a lot on tourism and people coming to the beaches? Should we call on her or him? Her. Her. Her,
What? I can answer that.
Hurricanes. Yeah, hurricanes can be devastating. And when a hurricane hits really hard, you know, in Puerto Rico, when a hurricane hits really hard, who do they turn to for some help? Yeah, the United States of America. Because are they a part of the United States of America? Yeah, and actually, this is where Puerto Rican opinion is such that they're like, maybe we could get more help if we were in the position of being a state.
Wow, there's something. It's on no gut.
Just, save it, just like every other state in the Union. Wow. Do we want the Idaho senators and representatives to do things that will help us? Yeah, I mean, that's what they do. They represent us. All right. Can a state just get up and leave? No, we covered that last time, right? And Republican government is guaranteed, and then the nation will come in if Jana is able to persuade the people of her state, make me dictator. No, you can't do that. Go buy your own island country and so forth, and then you can be the dictator of it and whatever, whatever. But not in this country. All right, we got the constitutional amendment process, right? Nail that down. Everyone, without looking, what fraction do you need of the House and Senate in order to get an amendment proposal? Don't mess with these people. 2/3. What fraction of the states do you need to ratify? Y'all suck. You need to have 3/4, right? I mean, it's right there. 3/4.
But they're all different, like simple majority, 3/4, 3/5, half, you know.
So it's like, well, if they're different, forget about it. When do you get to be like an adult? I don't know. It's a number. Who cares? You know, someday I'll be like something and whatever, you know, and then I'll be an adult. And I don't know, if you ask your parents, they might say 35. Right? Okay. Oh, that's lovely. Tell that to the judge, okay? Yeah, you identify as an adult. And we covered this last time. The public debt is assumed from the early days of our country. All of the debt we collected, all the money that we borrowed in order to win the American Revolution, we're going to pay those debts off as the United States government. Okay? That's cool. That's cool. If you can get somebody to assume your debt, that'd be nice. I'm like, I just went to college and I got $80,000 worth of student loans. Hello, friend. Do you want to be my friend? Do you want to take over my debt? Wouldn't that be lovely? And if you are really in serious debt, be careful who you take loans out from, because they might assume your debt and put you in a condition of gratitude. There you go. Gratitude. You're forever thankful for them taking over your debt. All right, now, here we go. The supremacy clause, okay? I don't know if we got too far into this. My notes say we didn't. Okay, the supremacy clause. Article 6. This is a very important one, which basically says, like, for example, and I'll give you a really good example. If a state can do something like tax, can states collect taxes to pay for, I don't know, public schools and things like that? Yeah, so states can do that. Can the national government collect taxes? Sure, okay. Not too much of a conflict there. Who are you going to have to pay taxes to in your lifetime? Both. Oh, and locals too. All right, but how about this one? Because sometimes there's a conflict. Sometimes states might say to the national government, we don't want you to do that. And the national government might respond going, you know what? I want to do that. Well, who wins in that conflict? If you have, it's like kind of like this. Who has sovereignty, authority over your bedroom? Do you have? Wow, that was fast. You do. Your parents. You're like, oh, I back off pretty quick. not gonna fight that one. Raise your hand if you have complete, absolute sovereignty over your bedroom. Raise your hand if your parents give you a certain amount of sovereignty over your bedroom. Raise your hand if occasionally your parents come in and go, wow, that's in our house, and I am astounded at the state of your bedroom. I've actually gotten to the point now with my daughter that I kind of joke with her because I'll come in the room and go, we need to do something about the cat. This cat has come in here when you weren't looking and upended everything. It's crazy. Okay? No, I mean, we've got a great cat, but obviously the cat didn't do it. The cat's usually like laying asleep on the bed, because that's what cats do. Cats are cool. Okay? But what happens if, I don't know, there's a conflict? Are you ready? Once upon a time, there was a conflict between, you ready? You can write this down. The United States of America and Idaho. Well, the Supremacy Clause says if both of them have the right to do it, who's going to win that conflict? Exactly, the United States government. Here was the conflict. Idaho. Have you guys ever been to Arco? What? Have you been to Arco? Have you been to, like, Craters of the Moon?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there's a small community there, Arco. Craters of the Moon is really cool. It's a natural phenomenon and so forth. Arco's a small community there, although a number of people from Arco, as well as just to the east of there, Idaho Falls, they work at the site, also known as the Idaho National Laboratory. Okay? That was the first place in the world that developed peaceful uses for nuclear energy. Electric power. Did you know that? Idaho was the first place to develop electric power from a nuclear reaction. All right, that's good. Peaceful uses. What was the very first non-peaceful use of nuclear reaction? Exactly, World War II. When the United States ended the war with Japan with a bomb on Hiroshima and another bomb on Nagasaki. But by the early 1950s, the United States had developed electrical power from nuclear reaction in Idaho. I don't know. I've heard it both ways, too. Hiroshima? Hiroshima. You think? Okay, fair enough. So, here's the deal. At the Idaho National Laboratory, there's all kinds of things that are conducted as far as nuclear testing and so forth, and also working with nuclear waste, because one of the things you get as a byproduct of nuclear power is leftover stuff, and it's referred to as like nuclear waste. So you can store it, you can work with it, you can do various different things. So a lot of the folks at the Idaho National Laboratory are like, well, yeah, fine, we can store nuclear waste, and we can work with it and so forth. But the governor of the state of Idaho, and a lot of other people in Idaho, back in the 1990s, were like, no, we don't want to have too much nuclear waste in Idaho. And in fact, we don't want to take nuclear waste from other parts of the country that don't want to store their own nuclear waste, don't bring it to Idaho. But it was being brought by the federal government. It was being brought by the federal government to Idaho. And the state, the governor of Idaho was like, we're going to stop those shipments from coming in. Oh, you can see a conflict going here, right? The governor of the state of Idaho was like, we're going to stop those shipments coming in. And some of them were from the United States Navy. Raise your hand if you can tell me. How does the United States Navy generate nuclear waste? Tell me, explain. Yep, and they can have a lot of generation of power, nuclear submarines and so forth. There's some other nuclear powered vessels in the United States Navy, right? I mean, that's pretty cool. So the United States Navy generates some nuclear waste as a result of the nuclear power. And so some of that waste that was coming to Idaho from the federal government was from the United States Navy, okay? The governor of Idaho says no. The United States government, Navy in particular, says yes. Michael, who's going to win that fight? It's not that hard. Can the people of Idaho and the governor of Idaho say, sorry, United States of America, you can't do that? You can try, but it's going to end up where, Trey, where ultimately are these state versus federal government conflicts going to end up?
What do you mean end up?
Who's going to decide?
All these people will win.
Well, who will decide? Jana, who will decide if there's a conflict between the United States and a state? The court. Yeah, it's going to go through the court. So the United States Supreme Court. And they're going to look at the Constitution. They're going to look and they're going to end up here. They're going to end up at the Supremacy Clause. And they're going to look and go, okay, does Idaho have legitimate reason to prevent nuclear waste from coming into their state? Sure, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so they're doing what they can do. All right, does the United States government and the United States Navy have a legitimate reason to actually store nuclear waste somewhere in the United States of America? Yes. Is it a constitutional, is it within the Constitution for the United States to have a Navy? Yes, it's actually specifically listed. So in that conflict, who's probably going to win? What do you think? Which government? Yeah, I think the United States government. It was interesting because what happened at the time was they kind of saved face. They reached an agreement, and the United States government agreed, we'll store it there and give you some money, state of Idaho, and it will be temporary. And we'll find a place to store it permanently, like maybe in Nevada or New Mexico, and we're working on it. And that was a long time ago, and the permanent storage of that waste has not really happened. So, speaking of messy rooms, but if that ever went back to the court and so forth, can Idaho go, hey, you violated your agreement, United States of America, get your stuff out of our state? I don't think so. Supremacy Clause prevails there. Okay? It's a very, very important one. That's why we have a really stupid old meme with a cat and a dog. And the cat's got the Supremacy Clause. And the dog has spittle flying all over the face, all over the place from a... Yeah, I don't know. I just found out on the internet. I thought, that's a weird meme. Anyway, so I'll use it in my demonstration here. So the cat is the federal government, and the dog is the state government or state law. Okay? Questions? It's a very important one. And this gives up a lot. Because who agreed to this new Constitution, including the Supremacy Clause? 13 states did. Yeah, so they gave up that power. All right. Next one. This is also in Article 6. This is the religious test. This is a little bit of what's going to be coming up in the First Amendment. No religious test shall be required as a qualification for office or public trust under the United States. Okay. Article 6, Section 3. So, do you have to belong to a particular religion in order to become president? No. Can you be told you can't be president of the United States because of a particular religion? What about any other federal job? No. So this is kind of like religious freedom. We don't know. I mean, there are a lot of people that identify back in those days as Christian and so forth, but there was a lot of different denominations. Methodists, Catholics, Presbyterian, Quaker, whatever. A lot of different ones. So they're like, let's not do it like the British. The British was like Church of England. Catholics couldn't hold jobs at that same time in Britain. Okay? So we're like, let's stay away from that. This will be developed further. Okay? If the president wants to take the oath of office on a Bible, go for it. You can do that. If you want to include "So help me God," go for it. But is it required? No. Okay? Good. The 11th Amendment is kind of a throwaway thing here. This is going to occur fairly early on in our country's history, ratified 1795, so like literally within the first 10 years of our country's history, of the Constitution. Supreme Court basically is like saying, the Constitution is saying that no state can be sued in a federal court by a resident of another state. What? So if you want to sue a state for something, you have to sue it in state court. Really? That's it? That's not too exciting, but that's what it is. So one of those precious 27 amendments is something that a lot of people don't spend a lot of time on. If you want to sue the state of Idaho, you can't sue it in a federal court. Okay, fine. I'll sue it in the state of Idaho court. Great. That's cool. Should we move on? Constitutional rights. The amendments. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You need to know what your rights are. We'll actually focus on this even more just for time's sake. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, but sometimes people are like, Mr. Hanson, I got a question about as far as what my rights are, because there's so many different rights. And in fact, I remember one time when I was teaching this, I would say, look, you guys want to make it easy? How about, so that you have less to study for the test, we take away some of your constitutional rights?
Yay.
And literally like, okay, so which of the constitutional rights really don't matter as much? And then they're like, wow, I actually need to know what I have before I just throw it away. Oh, and here's one for you. Write this down. Mr. Hanson says, if you don't know that you have a right, you really don't have that right. Isn't that crazy? I mean, if you're in a situation where you're like, I feel like I'm being violated here. I feel like I'm having something wrong done to me. I feel like my rights are being violated. Mr. Hanson, where are you? Somebody maybe comes up with a Mr. Hanson app. You like open it up on your phone and you hit a little thing that looks like me, and then you go, hey, Mr. Hanson, this has just happened to me. Have my rights been violated? And then you'll hear a voice come in going, good morning. Anyway, and I will respond as to whether they have or not. I mean, it's like, you know,
Please make that.
I'll let you guys do that. You're the entrepreneur,
I don't know
right?
anything about this one.
I don't either. Okay. So, I mean, here's the deal. You have to know it, because if you don't know it, you don't know that it's being taken away from you. Doesn't that suck? Have you ever been in a situation like, I just don't think that person should be able to do what they're doing, and I feel like something's wrong and amiss and so forth? Yeah? You're like, well, I just want to be older, but I don't want to be older. I just want to be wiser. There you go. I want to be wiser and still youthful, right? Would you like that? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, figure out how to invent that. But wisdom and knowing what your rights are, that's a good thing. So we're going to help you through this. We'll do it very quickly at the tail part of this unit, and we'll develop it even more in our next unit. Does that sound like a good deal? For the purposes of the test, make sure everything on that last page, look at the last page. You're like, oh my gosh, are you serious? You're going to go through that for the rest of the period and into part of the next period? Mm-hmm. First Amendment, here we go. Boom, 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 boom. For some people, it's the most important amendment in the United States Constitution because it is packed with all kinds of very important rights. So, for example, Congress, as in the United States of America, shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Very quickly, because we're going to spend quite a bit of time on that later on, this is like the freedom of religion thing. 2 parts. United States government, don't be imposing a religion on me. Cool, you got that? That's the so-called Establishment Clause. The other part of it is, United States government, don't prevent me from practicing my religion. Does that seem fair? And that's just one part of the First Amendment. I've actually added that in there because if you recall from last year, when the states joined the Constitution, they're like, yeah, well, we have all these rights in our state constitutions. Maybe we should put these in the federal Constitution. And they're like, okay, fine. I know it's not in the original Constitution. It is not in the original Constitution. But they amended the Constitution very quickly. And what are those first 10 amendments called? Very good, the Bill of Rights. Right? Normally, I would say if somebody says to you, here, sign this, and then we'll fix it later, don't sign it. Don't agree to it. Go, why don't you fix it now, and then I'll sign it. But in this case, it actually worked out fine. The Bill of Rights, including the First Amendment and the other ones all the way up through 10, are going to be proposed very quickly and ratified very quickly. Okay? Okay, so next part of it. Or prohibiting the free exercise there. I've got to put that part. Or abridging the freedom of speech. Woohoo! Freedom of speech and all sorts of expression. Thank you. United States government can't take away my freedom of speech. With some exceptions, which we'll get into. You're like, I can talk whenever I feel like it. And the United States government or any other local government official cannot abridge my freedom of speech.
Exactly.
Wrong, Trey. There are limits because on all of these, make a little note of this. A lot of these, it's going to be like this balancing act. So like, for example, here in this situation, as the authority, as the government employee, I make sure we have a good learning environment. So if you need to shut some people down and limit their freedom of speech at times for the educational purpose, that's the balancing act. Can they shut you down for all time? No. If you're out walking along the street and so forth, you've got much, much more freedom of speech right than you do, say, in a classroom at a given time. Does that make sense? We'll study those because that's a very important one, free speech. Or of the press, so news media. There's very important rights to, like, it's kind of like free speech with a megaphone or free speech on the internet, whatever. Or the right of the people to, this one's good, not just assemble, because pitchforks in assembly is not protected, but peaceful assembly. Do you have a right to peacefully assemble and knock down the fences and go into the Capitol building and mess with Nancy Pelosi's papers?
Yeah.
No. Peaceful assembly is protected. Very, very important. Right to petition the government for the redress of grievances. Petition the government saying, hey, government, can you do this? Can you do that? Now, you can petition the government all you want, but the government isn't necessarily going to do. This First Amendment is chock full of very important things. You got it? We're going to come back to it because there's going to be all kinds of interesting analysis. And whose opinion about what's in the First Amendment is going to matter the most? Vera, whose opinion is going to matter the most in the United States government? President, Congress, Supreme Court. Exactly, very good. They get the final word if the case is brought through the courts and ends up on their desk. It doesn't automatically go there, but on important cases, a lot of times it will end up there. Okay? Second Amendment. Anybody got any opinions about the Second Amendment?
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Has to do with guns. Although, tell me, is there a word gun in there?
No.
Well, what word kind of looks like guns? Militia is a group of people. Bear arms. Now notice it's not B-A-R-E, as in like, roll up your sleeves. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Cool. It looks like it has a lot to do with guns, and then when we analyze it a little bit more closely, it is going to be a limited gun right. A limited gun right. Says who? Says the United States Supreme Court. And they actually haven't said that for very long. It's actually still fairly recent in our history. But how are you going to remember this one? The Second Amendment. Fix that again. Okay? Oh, yeah. The next one, three-finger knock. Or at least three fingers. I don't know, that doesn't even work. Third Amendment, four fingers knock is the better one. Third Amendment is kind of weird. This goes so much back to the 18th century. The Third Amendment, as you can see in your handout, right? Third Amendment, no quartering troops. Huh? For the most part, the government can't come around to your house and go, hey, nice house, we're going to put the military in here to bunk up with you. What? Yeah, it's like, no, you can't crash on my couch and get that tank out of my yard. I mean, if you're in the military and you need a place to sleep, typically, where are you going to sleep? Barracks, exactly. And a lot of, like, because my father-in-law, was in the United States Marine Corps, and they could either have base housing or give you a certain amount of money. You can go buy a house or rent a house or someplace near the base where you're stationed. Does that make sense? What's that? Yeah, those camps, yeah, the base camps, so like, you got Fort Lejeune or something like that or whatever. So you got people living on base and you got some people living just off the base. But yeah, you don't have to like go barge into people's houses. In China, apparently, like in one province in particular, they're actually sending the Chinese government and soldiers and so forth to live in the houses of the people that they're keeping an eye on. They don't have a Third Amendment in China. It's not part of their constitution. Third Amendment. We won't spend too much time on that one because that one's not too controversial. Fourth Amendment. This one is very important. This is like one of those ones that's going to be very important in law enforcement. Fourth Amendment. Right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but on probable cause, supported by an oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons to be seized. So knock, knock, knock. Think. Four fingers. Fourth Amendment. Knock, knock, knock. The police. We want to come in. Your response? I got one. Who issues the warrants?
You have a warrant.
Who issues the warrant? A judge, a local judge. And what is the judge going to demand before they're going to give the police a warrant to go search your house?
What?
They're going to need probable cause. That there is reasonable suspicion that there is criminal activity taking place in that home, or that you have been involved in criminal activity and so forth. Okay? Interesting stuff. There's going to be some exceptions. We will spend some time talking about all the ins and outs and so forth because, I mean, here's an obvious one. Let's say I saw Trey, I'm a police officer, I saw Trey commit a crime, and I'm like, ooh, Trey, stop right there. And he runs into your house.
I'm not a daddy girl.
No. He runs into your house. And then, so I see him run into your house. I'm going to go like, knock, 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 and you're like, come back with a warrant. No. I'm going to be able to go in your house, and so there's going to be some exceptions. Because if I come back with a warrant, he'll be gone. Okay, well, I mean, unless you're like a co-conspirator, accomplice kind of thing, and so forth. All right? Anyway, we will sort out some interesting things having to do with the Fourth Amendment, and I'm sure come up with some various curious questions that you have. Fifth Amendment has lots of interesting things in it. Let's do the Fifth Amendment. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. You know that song, right? That's the Jeopardy song, right? Well, the other person's like, I have no idea. You know, they're doing some drawing and so forth at the end. Double jeopardy is part of the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment's got a bunch of different things we'll actually go through. Wow, my gosh, there's a whole bunch of things. Double jeopardy basically says, you ready? If you're charged with a crime and you're found not guilty, and then the government's like, wait a minute, we've got more evidence. We want to charge you with that same crime again. No can do. We cannot put you twice in jeopardy of being found guilty if we've already taken you through that trial and you were found not guilty. Yes. If it's a later one, fine, that's different. That's different. Yeah, it's only if it's a different one. And we'll look at this because not all countries agree with that. There are some other countries that are like, we need to make sure that we get the wrongdoers in jail. If it takes a little bit of time, we'll do that. The United States is the opinion like, we got one shot at you. We need to bring the best case forward. Otherwise, it's like, just keep bringing them back, keep bringing them back, keep bringing them back. It's a real hassle for that person. So, does double jeopardy help with law enforcement? Not necessarily, but it helps individuals to get things taken care of. Right? The prosecution has to bring their best case. So, I mean, literally, you're charged with a crime. And you're found not guilty. And you walk out of the courtroom and look at the prosecutor and go, I did it. Can they charge you with that same crime? You just admitted that you did it. No. No, double jeopardy says for that crime, they can't bring you back. Now, if I'm suing you for money, that's a different thing. Civil and criminal, we'll get into that in the next unit. If you're O.J. Simpson and you're found not guilty of killing your ex-wife, you can't be charged with that crime anymore. But can they bring a lawsuit against you for money? Yeah. And they actually won that lawsuit against him. He had actually written a book called If I Did It. As in, like, if I was the guy that actually killed my ex-wife and her friend, that I would have done it this way. What a weird book. Oh, my gosh. And it was weird because when they won the lawsuit against him later, they got complete control over the book as part of the award, and they changed the title. They took out one of the words in the title from If I Did It. I know, it's like, it's just weird, you know. There's all kinds of weird examples that we will refer back to. And the O.J. Simpson scenario is very helpful because you guys know who O.J. Simpson is. Yeah, that's what they did. Yeah, they changed it. This is also part of the Fifth Amendment, okay? You have due process, and we'll identify what due process is. But basically, it's this. The government cannot take away your life, kill you, your liberty, your freedom, your property, your stuff, without due process, which means what? Some kind of like a court hearing, okay? And it varies in all kinds of various different circumstances. But they can't just come along and go, I want that, and take it. That's my stuff. That's my life. That's my freedom. The courts are going to, the Constitution demands in the Fifth Amendment that there be some kind of a process. So it's like, here's one. Oh, we want to kick you out of school because you did something bad. Can we just kick you out? And you're like, no, you get due process. You get a hearing. You get an opportunity to present like your point of view. You may still get kicked out, but you have that due process. It's very important.
What if they what if you didn't do it, but like they try to find something and over exaggerate it?
Well, then part of the process is to bring your counter evidence and your counter arguments so that you can show that it is an exaggeration.
But what if you just make up, to cover it up, you just make up a false charge?
Well, I'll tell you what, you do not want to be involved in making false charges because that can come back in your face as a prosecutor or a government employee.
No,
You're not supposed to do that.
Did that.
What?
It's like the government or...
Yeah, no, it can come back on them, big time. So don't do it, right? Fifth Amendment. Yes, quickly. Yeah, we'll get into that as far as how all the criminal prosecution and so forth. We're just doing a quick overview here of the different component parts of the remainder of your rights. Fifth Amendment. I love this cartoon here. You have a right to remain silent. I love it. It's a French mime. Really? You have to tell the mime that he's going to have to remain silent, or he has a right to remain silent. So if the government says, we charge you with a crime, and you're like, and then they ask you the question, did you do the crime? You're like, can we just assume that you did the crime because you didn't answer no? Try this at home. If your parents say, did you do that wrong thing? And you're like, I've got a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. What are your parents going to think? You did it. Yeah, it's like, well, it's a constitutional right. So anyway, Fifth Amendment, right to remain silent. Fifth Amendment, there's another component part of the Fifth Amendment. Oh my gosh, the Fifth Amendment's got all kinds of stuff in there. And this doesn't have anything to do with the crime. It has to do with the government using eminent domain. I'll describe it very quickly. The government looks at your property and goes, we want that. We're going to use it. We'll give you some money for it, a decent amount, but we'll use it for a public purpose. We're going to put like a road through here or something like that. And so, yeah. But you have your right basically is, government, before you take that stuff away from me, you have to show it's for a public purpose. Oh, you just did that. Oh, shoot. You have to show that you're giving me a reasonable amount of money. Oh, shoot, you did that too. So either your house gets destroyed in order to widen the road, or you strap it to a bunch of balloons and go to Angel Falls in South America. Right? Have you seen that movie? You haven't seen Up? Oh my gosh, you need to watch that. The very first scene is just like the most emotional scene ever, and they hardly even use any words. Am I right?
No, you're right.
Thank you.
I've seen it so many times and I haven't kept reading it because I first saw it when I was like 5 and barely knew what was going on, and I just saw it over and over again. And
Yeah, different like child movies and so forth have different impacts at different stages and so forth. Anyway, Fifth Amendment. Sixth Amendment rights. Write this down. Sixth Amendment rights. All kinds of rights associated with the criminal process. So if you're arrested, you have the right to a trial, okay? You have the right to call witnesses. You have the right to cross-examine their witnesses. You have the right to confront, look at their witnesses in the trial. You have the right for it to be a public trial. You have the right for it to be speedy. They can't drag it out. You have the right to have a jury participate in that trial. Lots of key component parts, and we'll pull this apart and deal with that. So Sixth Amendment, there are a lot of trial rights. Got that? Jury of your peers and so forth. How about we got 7th, 8th, 9th? Actually, we're going to get, yeah, this is great. They're not going to answer the question. Yeah. They're like, you can't make me talk. You can't force me to talk. Okay? So next time we'll do the 7th, we'll do the 8th. Ooh, cruel and unusual punishment. We'll do bail bonds, which is part of the 8th. We'll do the 9th Amendment, which is kind of weird. It's not going to be very good. The 13th Amendment, freedom from slavery. 14th Amendment, equal protection. That'll be interesting, so we'll develop that just a little bit. We'll do the 15th Amendment, African Americans can vote. 19th Amendment, women can vote. 24th Amendment, no poll taxes. 26th Amendment, 18-year-olds get a vote. So if you pay attention to numbers, 18 isn't important. You got to be an adult, and you got to vote. And the income tax, the 16th Amendment, we've actually already covered that. The 17th Amendment, we covered that one too. The 18th Amendment, prohibition. And then getting rid of prohibition. And the 27th Amendment, which we've already covered. So next time, we'll go through those ones, and we'll be done, and then we'll review. And we will have a test on Thursday of next week. Does that sound good? Of course it does. Oh, yeah.
But again, like, what if I sexually identify as an adult, then don't I get all the rights with it?
Sexually identify as an adult?
Yeah.
Adult is not a sexual status. Gender is a sexual status.
Well, I identify as.
Oh, you identify as an adult.
Yeah.
Okay. What's a chronological thing? Can you fast forward, like, time?
No, but.
Okay.
If yeah. If I identify, then I could gain all those rights.
You could. You could. Who knows? Give it a try. Bring a case in court. Have you wiped down? After you wipe down, then you are free to go.